Fantastic.
So she'll be there. I think that's good. We have quorum, Dr. Louder.
Well, it's taken YouTube just a minute, just a second.
That's fine. That's fine. It says media is now streaming live
Okay.
and recording. Good.
Oh, I didn't, okay, Christina, you hit record then?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, I am sending the link to Ernest. That's done. Okay, good morning all. Welcome to our June LTAC meeting. We are streaming live on YouTube, and so a couple of housekeeping things as we get started. Please make sure you keep your cameras on as we're going through the meeting. Only unmute when you're talking, just so we can keep down the background noise. I understand many of you have may need to step out for phone calls and other meetings. Perfectly okay. We understand that happens. Through the agenda, we will plan to break into subgroups after we get through the first bit of our agenda this morning, and then we'll break into subgroups and then come back together in a little bit there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Lofters to help with any housekeeping that we need to do before I call the meeting to order, and we'll get started. Dr. Lofters, you are muted. There you go.
Yes, and I just noticed that. I'm very sorry. Good morning to all. Thank you very much for joining us today for the LTAC meeting. I think Dr. Louder covered all the basics as far as operations of the Zoom meeting, as far as keeping your microphone on mute, keeping your video on. There was one other piece I had on here. Oh, I wanted to thank the chairs and Texas Tech for once again hosting this meeting through Zoom. Appreciate that very much. I also want to thank Christina Kelly and Jessica Acton and THEB staff, Kyla, Tori, and Ernest Jaquez for helping us get this streamed so that we can have this meeting. And a lot of things have changed since COVID-19. I understand from our previous conversation that things are still a little bit in flux. So thanks again for joining. And I believe we're fine. I think we said that people had to leave for if they might have to leave for calls or certain things. That's fine. There are certain times that we do need a quorum. Will be when we are voting. So those are the times that we would need you, and we're trying to get those done towards the beginning of the meeting. I believe that's it, Dr. Lauder. Oh, sorry, one more thing. We do have Dr. James Goldman. He's the Director in Academic Quality and Workforce. Dr. Goldman, would you like to say anything?
Dr. Goldman, you're
James, if you are saying something, you're on mute. I take it that's not, we're fine then, Dr. Lauder.
okay. Well, excellent. I will call the meeting to order, and once again welcome you all to our June LTAC meeting. Thank you all for joining. I know we typically sometimes meet in the summer, sometimes wait until September, but there were a couple of items that came up that we need to meet on, and so thank you all for joining from what looks like most of us are still at home. Some of us may be in our offices, and everybody working from home and all of that. You know, I see we have a couple of furry friends with us this morning as well, and so we all completely understand that you know, our animals and kids and spouses may wander in and out of the frame through the meeting, and it's just the nature of working from home. in a pandemic. So our first item on the agenda, welcome introductions, call to order. Dr. Lofters, I don't believe we have anybody new today that was not on last time. Is that correct?
That is correct. I believe we had everyone here from last meeting. Is there someone that was not here during last meeting, apart from the Midwestern State representatives?
Yeah, this is Daniel Gonzalez. I was not present at the last meeting.
Oh, that's true. Welcome, Daniel.
Daniel, would you mind doing a brief introduction for the committee?
Sure. My name is Daniel Gonzalez Jr., and I'm the Director of Distance Education at Alvin Community College.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. We will go then to item number 2, which is the consideration of summary notes from the May 22nd, 2020 meeting. That was our first Zoom meeting. And my understanding of the first Zoom meeting for any of the coordinating board committees. And it went very well. And so those meeting minutes were emailed out about a week or so ago. And then Christina sent another email, I believe it was yesterday, with all the materials for today's meeting. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. Are there any comments, corrections, or additions that need to be made to the summary notes? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve summary notes as emailed?
So moved.
Okay, sorry, I'm looking at Brady Bunch screen here. Who said
Pam.
that? Pam, there we go. Pam moves. Do I have a second?
This is
Adelise
Vicky.
seconds it.
Okay, I heard Vicky first, so I'll say Vicky second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand within the Zoom. Okay. All right. Any opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? All right. Summary notes will stand approved as emailed. Next, we will go to item number 3 on our agenda, which is the discussion of Midwestern State University's adherence to THECB distance education policy and the proposed delivery of its existing doctorate education degree with a program in educational leadership. And I will turn it over to the doctoral proposal subcommittee, Dr. Mock.
Dr. Lauder, I'd like to, just before we get going, it is a new program that they're going to be offering.
Oh, it's not an existing program, it's a new program.
It's new.
Okay, so that's a typo in the agenda. Okay.
In the annotated agenda that I sent you, yes. So
Okay.
On the regular agenda, it does say new, yes.
Okay, new doctoral education degree in ed leadership. Dr. Mott, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Louder. I'm trusting that everyone can hear me okay. We have before us a proposal from Midwestern State University for a new EDD in educational leadership. The proposal is coming forward as a blended hybrid online program that integrates both online learning and some campus face-to-face sessions within the program. The history of offering a doctoral degree program at Midwestern State University in this particular area had previously been through an offering as a cooperative degree program with the University of North Texas. The limitations and the motivation for creating an independent EDD program that is offered through Midwestern State University is because of the on-campus presence, which created a rate limiting problem for some of the students from this region in the state that Midwestern University serves. We have 2 representatives from the university who are here as guests to our meeting. Dr. Catherine Zuckweiler, who is the Dean of the Makeda Graduate School, and Dr. Matthew Capps, the Dean of the West College of Education. The West College of Education would be the academic college, the home for this particular program. And so I invite Dr. Zuckweiler and Dr. Capps to present any comments that they'd like to make before we continue our discussion. Thank you.
Our colleagues at MSU.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you this morning. And I don't know to the extent that what kind of comments that you want to hear. I'll give you a very brief overview of where we are in this process. We have operated a joint doctoral program at the University of North Texas since 1993. In 2010, I renegotiated with the University of North Texas to offer 8 of the 20 classes from MSU. So the 4th and 5th cohorts, which most of those are now complete, those courses were actually MSU courses taught by MSU faculty and were transferred into the UNT program. So we have a history of offering and teaching courses already. What has happened more recently, there's I would say 2 events that have precipitated us getting to this point. Primary one is the University of North Texas has indicated that they're no longer going to offer these joint doctoral programs. We're not the only ones that offer one of these. So the opportunity for students in this area to seek out a terminal degree is going to be extremely limited. And the other one goes back to something that happened in 2016 when Dr. Paredes was still commissioner of coordinating board. And he mentioned that he would like to see an EDD advanced school leadership program in every region. Well, Region 9 doesn't have one of those. We are the only university in this region. So that's the other issue that came up as to why we've moved on to this stage. We've done a lot of research and background on getting students prepared, find out the level of interest in this, and it is still there. That's something that is highly needed and highly desirable in a blended format where they can still have some face-to-face communication. So I'll stop there because I'm sure you have other questions that you need to ask. And Dr. Zuckweiler, do you have anything that you need to add?
No, I think you did a great job, Dr. Capps, and we'll be happy to take any questions from the committee.
So I want to give an opportunity to any of our doctoral program subcommittee members to offer any other comments before we move it to the next level. So I didn't know whether any of the committee members, Dr. Freeman, Dr. Morales, others had any other additional comments to offer from the subcommittee level.
And if I could add to that Dr. Morgan is part of the subcommittee, but she is also a member of the MSU staff. So therefore, she is able to make comments as far as providing information on the program, but she will have to recuse herself for the actual vote since she is part of MSU.
So Dr. Lofters and Dr. Louder are not here seeing any raised hands or any comments from the subcommittee in our online discussion and review. The subcommittee favorably recommends to the full LTAC approval of this proposal from Midwestern State University. They've demonstrated a history in working with this population, the maturity to offer this type of program and the necessary online resources to be able to offer a quality program at the doctoral level in a hybrid blended online modality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mock. To the full committee, LTAC committee, are there any questions to our colleagues from MSU?
Hi, Dr. Lauder. This is Patrick Flush at UNT. And this is just something I think that probably needs to be addressed as the proposal goes forward. It's not any type of critique of what's been proposed. But on page 17, table 10, there's a list of the semester credit hour requirements for similar programs in Texas. And when I look at the column that contains program zip codes, it looks like maybe there was a fill series selected and it did it in incremental order. So those zip codes increase by 1 in that third field. And I think it probably should just be 13.0401 through all of them without any third field included.
To our colleagues at MSU, do you agree with that? I mean, I think that's the case as well. Andrew and coordinating board staff, James, others, what are your thoughts there? Does it need to be modified, or?
I think that's exactly what happens when we copied and filled. It just filled. It thought we were doing something that we weren't. So I think that's obviously those codes are not correct, and quite honestly, not something that I caught. So if you need us to correct that and resubmit the entire report, we can do that.
Andrew?
I'm Dr. Tori. Is she's still on here somewhere? I just don't see her.
I'm here. Yeah.
All right, Tori, there you are. She is the program director, correct? Working with this particular proposal. How would you like to move forward with that? I think this probably can just be amended.
Right. Yeah, I think we can just amend the table. That would be fine if you all can do that at MSU. Yeah, I didn't catch that either, so nice. Thank you.
Great.
So Dr. Lauder, this is Jacqueline. That's a great catch. So thank you to you and to Patrick for noticing that. Would you then accept a motion from the subcommittee for approval with the amended table as noted and as discussed? Is that the most appropriate way to move forward for consideration?
Yep, I think, excuse me, I think that would be the most appropriate to move forward. So we don't hold this up because that's a very minor thing. So I think we can do that. Any other comments from the committee itself? I had just a couple of questions. So y'all went from more of a hybrid delivery to, I believe you said last year or the last cohort, only 8 of the 20 classes were taught by UNT, and the majority were taught by MSU. And so because
the other way.
Oh,
8 of the courses were taught by MSU. The rest of the courses were UNT courses.
Okay, so that's so then this is going to be an increase in courses there. So could you talk to me just a little bit about how you've either increased the support services or the materials for doctoral students, things like that, to take on all of the courses now? What modifications have been made there?
There's a couple of things that will happen is our current faculty load, for example, our ed leadership faculty don't teach only ed leadership courses. They teach a blend of both undergraduate and graduate. So as we move forward in order to help support the master's program, that would shift their load and also shift their load into the doctoral program. I still teach. Deans are required on this campus to teach. So my load would shift to teaching primary doctoral courses, and then the master's level courses that I teach would shift to other people. We also have 3 vacant lines, and upon approval of the proposal, we'll hire a new ed leadership faculty member. And what we're looking for is somebody with central office experience that can really to fill in the gaps of what the existing ed leadership faculty have in terms of that level of experience. And we have the funding prepared for that. As far as support that goes with that, we have the support of the West Foundation. They We provide a proposal to each year. They provide financial support to our college. Just to give you some examples of that, they have paid for half of every doctorate degree for the last 5 cohorts for everybody who goes through our program. So there is financial support to the students to pay for half the degree. I think they'll still continue. I know they'll still continue to do that. They provide support to the faculty. Our faculties receive about $2,500 to $3,000 a year for research, development, and travel. We also have a West Professor of Educational Leadership that is basically, for lack of a better word, is a chaired position, and that person receives a substantial stipend. So there's a lot of financial support, both from the university and from private foundation that will help move this program forward.
And I had 2 other questions. On the curriculum tables on page 18, the superintendent internship says it's an optional course.
It is.
And so I'm guessing for those that don't take that, would they, excuse me, take something in its place, or how would that work out?
No, that course is above and beyond the existing degree requirements. And the reason we put that in there is when we started surveying the students in this area about whether or not they want to actually pursue a superintendent certificate, not a lot of people really want to be a superintendent. I can't imagine why right now, but nonetheless that they don't. So it's something that we wanted to leave in there. The degree is really oriented towards people becoming better instructional leaders district-wide, not just simply producing superintendents. So it's just something extra that a person would have to do.
Excellent. My other hat at Texas Tech is interim superintendent of our K-12 program, so I kind of understand your. And that actually brings up my last question. You do not anticipate the current conversation about MSU possibly joining the Texas Tech system. You don't anticipate that changing this in any way, shape, or form, right?
No, not at this time, and that is a good question I've asked about. As far as I know, and Kathy, I would like for you to weigh in on this. I'm talking with our provost and president that is not an issue for them. And when I say them, I mean Texas Tech, for us having this in place. Kathy, do you have anything to add to that?
That's my understanding as well. I believe Dr. Johnston, our provost, specifically asked that, or Dr. Shipley did, as part of the discussions, and it came back that Tech had no issue with us pursuing this degree.
Excellent. Dr. Morgan, you are both on our LTAC committee and part of MSU. Is there anything you would like to say on this degree, the technology provided, and support available for students?
Well, I know the issues that the LTAC usually focus on, and so I can say that I'm also an adjunct for the graduate faculty for Dr. Capps, but this is a quality program. The college has always led in technology innovations and pushing forward as quickly as our health sciences. It's a very dedicated faculty. They're some of the few that actually always ask for extra and more training as opposed to minimal. Very dedicated. The technology is sufficient for what they're wanting to do. We seldom hear from education faculty with big problems. We seldom hear from education students having big problems. So I have no reservations at all about it. And, even when I was included in the discussions before it got to this point, I think it's an excellent program to go forward, and I'm really excited for them.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Not hearing any other questions, Dr. Mock, I will turn it back over to you for the doctoral proposal subcommittee's recommendations.
So on behalf of the doctoral proposal subcommittee, I move that the Learning Technology Advisory Committee approve the proposal as presented by Midwestern State University for an EDD in leadership, with the amendment to update page 17 of the proposal to correct the technical errors in the program zip codes.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Monica. Because that is coming to the large committee as a motion from our working group, we don't need a second. So we'll move on to item 4, which is the consideration of recommendation regarding Midwestern State University's adherence to THECB distance education policy, subject to THECB review and analysis of its proposed delivery of a new Doctor of Education degree with a program in educational leadership. Our doctoral proposal subcommittee has moved to approve this with the amended chart with the zip code modification. So with that, I would open up to the committee for any final comments, and then we'll move into a vote. Hearing no comments, I would ask that the LTAC committee voting members please signify approval of this proposal by raising your hand or using the hand feature in Zoom. All right. Seeing hands and thumbs up from the committee. I'll now say any opposed? And then any abstentions? And that would be Dr. Morgan. All right. For our colleagues at Midwestern, congratulations, LTAC has approved your proposed EDD in educational leadership. Dr. Lofters, the next step for this proposal would be staff review and then full board. Is that correct? So it's new?
That's correct. Since this is a new program, it goes on to the full board. I believe, correct, Dr. Torrey, it goes to the July board meeting?
We'll go to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success first in July, and then on to the full board the next day. So yes.
Thank you.
So our colleagues at MSU, you are welcome to stay on for the remainder of our meeting, but we will not be offended if you sign off, except Pam, you can't leave.
Okay, thank you very much for everybody's time that you spent on this. We really appreciate it. And Pam, sorry you have to stay, but I am going to bow out of this. I'll find something else to do.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. Capps.
Thank you very much to the committee. Dr. Torrey and Dr. Lofters, shall we update the table and send that revision to both of you, or what would be the appropriate process to note those revisions?
I would suggest you send that to Dr. Torrey. She's the program director that's doing the full review. Was that fine with you, Dr. Torrey?
Yeah, you can just email that to me. That's fine.
We'll get that taken care
Okay,
of. Thank you very
we'll
much.
get that done.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Excellent. Now we will move on to item 5 in our agenda, which are a number of coordinating board updates. We'll start with Dr. Lofters. For the LTAC committee and those watching streaming, many of the coordinating board staff that will provide updates do have some materials that they will be showing. They've all been given co-hosting ability, so they should be able to show from their computers, but as we transition to different speakers, we will need to give them just a couple of seconds to get situated. So our first item on for THECB updates would be COVID-19 distance education accommodations. Dr. Lofters, I believe that was you.
Yes, that is me, and I'm going to give it my shot to share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yes, it is coming through now.
Okay, good. Ever since COVID-19 started to really affect the higher ed institutions in March, the coordinating board had started a coronavirus update for higher education on our main webpage. And when you go to the main webpage, which I'm showing you here, you'll be able to find the link to the COVID update for higher education right here on the left side. If you click on this link, it will give you a large array of information. You have updates coming from the governor, latest THECB updates that are updated regularly. Like I said, governor updates, and I've heard that there was another one this morning, but I'm not sure if they had any other higher education implications. Since we were getting ready for this meeting, I didn't even hear of that one until Dr. Louder told me about it. And then we have down here frequently asked questions. This is where we direct a lot of the institutions to refer to when they have questions regarding COVID accommodations due to, accommodations to programming due to COVID-19 and delivery. And one that I was going to talk about today was the distance education, because it came up in the last meeting and we weren't able to actually see it. So I just want to show you where it was. Underneath the FAQ under courses, calendars, and reporting, it has a whole lot of information. Some of it has to do with pass-fail options, change of course calendars, and so forth. But if you go down here towards the bottom, it says the online modality, and it gives institutions information and considerations as they move their courses, as they moved their courses online. And then gave you another article to give you as a reference. Now, one of the questions that came up in the last meeting is how the institutions should report. So currently, our current policy right now is that if you wanted to move your courses to an online delivery, it was basically 100% online because no one was meeting on campuses for the most part. You didn't have to report it to us for either the spring semester or the summer for 2020. And if you wanted it to be permanent after that time, you would then have to report it to us or notify us for online using the regular policy. Last meeting, there was a question about, we're not quite sure how things are going to look in the fall, and things are changing daily. As I've been looking at the news lately, the numbers have been changing, fluctuating. So I did ask again to leadership yesterday, and they are in current discussions on how to accommodate institutions as they go on to the fall semester. So right now, we're still within the summer, so they have a little time to update, but they are right now currently in those conversations to go and expand your ability to offer courses online without reporting. Now, they do want to keep the distance ed inventory that we currently have accurate. So that was one of the I think that's one of the considerations they are discussing as they're going forward. How can we keep that distance ed program inventory up to date so that people can see what institutions are offering? Now, if it is just courses and not full programs, we really don't have that in our inventory that you see from the AQW. But when it goes to programs, that's when we need to give you some updated information on what you need to do as far as reporting them to keep permanent programs online. I just wanted to show you where this was and where the COVID-19 coronavirus updates are on our webpage.
Dr. Louder,
Yes, go ahead.
you just said, so update the coordinating board to make the changes. Sorry. Excuse me, sorry. I didn't want to sneeze in the microphone. You said to notify the coordinating board to make the distance modality changes permanent. So what are you saying? So you are saying that through the fall we were probably okay, but if it goes beyond fall, is that when we need to start making the notifications, or has coordinating board talked about that? And I'm talking program specific, not individual courses, of course.
Right. So right now, it is up through summer, the summer terms. What they're discussing right now is how they're going to, what we're going to do going towards the fall. And I think that has a lot to do with where we are as a state as far as the coronavirus and how it's spreading. And I've been noticing a lot of, excuse me, institutions are making plans that they've been promoting to the public, saying that we're going to start going in the fall for some form of face-to-face instruction. But I'm sure that even the institutions are still looking at what's going on as far as the COVID-19 spread in Texas. So right now they're still in discussions on that. We still have a little time since we're still within that summer term. And once they decide on whether or not, when I say permanent, for online programs at the bachelor's degree and master's degree, you just have to notify us and say, we're going to put this program on as an online modality. It's not going through a full approval process. You're just telling us for an online program. We're not talking about off campus or anything like that, just online delivery. Doctoral programs right now, the courses are being delivered. If they're telling us that they're delivering the program courses for a doctoral program, they're able to do so due to COVID-19. It's in the best interest of the student. If they want to keep that delivery, if they go past 4 courses for a doctoral program, they'll have to notify us after the period that the coordinating board is deemed open for you to offer these courses due to COVID-19. Like I said, we're still trying to figure out if we're going to extend it into the fall semester. I'm sure that they're taking that into consideration, that students might not have the ability to get back, to the campus. I just can't give you a definite what's going on in the fall because it hasn't been finalized at this point. Did I answer your question?
Yes, but it raises another question because you said something about students that can come to campus. Has there been any discussion about our international students that may not be able to get back into country? I know that's more of a Department of State visa issue, but I wasn't sure if coordinating board had talked about it.
And I thought I saw one recently. We had that discussion recently with a certain program, and what it was that the student was an international student, and if it wasn't for COVID-19, they would be considered what we call regular. A regular student is one that takes the majority of their coursework for a certain program on the main campus. All right. These international students would have been regular and been on campus if it wasn't been for COVID-19, but now they can't get back. So the question was, how can we accommodate these students to deliver these programs to them online? Because it's a little bit different. It's a different process for those students who are international when they're online. Online delivery of programs or courses to out-of-state or international students, if they're not regular, that's a big thing. If they're not a regular student, they're not able to be funded by state funding, and you can't use state funds in the delivery of those programs. But since these students are there just because of COVID-19, I had recommended to the leadership that they take that into consideration and maybe consider that for one of the accommodations for them. And I thought I saw something there, but I didn't look at that before this meeting, but we have had that discussion already. That, we might have to consider an accommodation for those international students who would otherwise been a regular student on campus, but now they fit into the out of state, out of country category, but really we're looking at accommodations for them right now.
Thank you, Andrew. Vicki, did you have your hand up for a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you. The other consideration on the out-of-state ones, if I remember correctly, is that, out of international, is if they're in the country, they because of the of Homeland Security, they can only take like 1 course a semester as a distance student because of Homeland Security issues. So I don't know how we get around that piece. I was curious if that's been addressed. So that's almost a little bit different than them being out of the country. They're here, but they're not supposed to be taking online courses.
Yeah,
That hasn't come up to me yet, but I will look into that one. I haven't heard about that yet. That hasn't been an issue yet, but I will find out about that.
That would be great because sometimes we have some in that category.
Vicki, we've been talking about it at Tech as well. What we are kind of looking at is the possibility of allowing these students, if they are in state but they can't get to Lubbock, to go to one of our regional sites and take either synchronous live electronic to group video delivered classes, or talking with them about possibly staying in home country and taking more online that way, because of course that doesn't impact their visa if they're still in the home country. But yeah, anybody else on the committee, especially those with fairly large international student components, what are your campuses discussing or anything like that? And I can't see if anybody's raising their hand because of the screen share and YouTube.
And I'll stop that. I'll stop that now.
Okay. So if anybody has something to say, please feel free to just jump in.
Dr. Lauder, it's something that we have spoken with at UNT with our international department, trying to address really multiple populations of international students, those that are stuck here but plan to be on campus otherwise, those who have gone home and now are unable to get back due to visa issues, and then consider, and of course, the population of ongoing students who were online, but just taking minimal amount, and then a possible new cohort of international students who will never come to our campuses. They'll take our fully online degrees. And I know that there was at least informal work group, our governmental affairs folks, I know yours, Justin, we're working with coordinating board staff around the funding for these students. How do we get to report and count them? And this extended into out-of-state students too. So non-resident students who would have come to UNT, paid non-resident tuition and received formula funding, who now may be suddenly out-of-state students. And ordinarily we would charge them our out-of-state teaching fee in lieu of tuition, wouldn't report them for formula funding. But I know that they were seeking the same type of relief, that we might be able to establish that these students were resident students, and it was COVID-19 that required that they be displaced to their home states and take only online courses. And so we would like to continue to report them for formula funding as if they were here in Texas. So I don't know where that work is right now, but I know it was actually just really firing up as we had our last meeting in May. So I suspect there's been some progress. I'm just not aware of what that might be.
Excellent. Anybody else?
This is Jacqueline. Dr. Lofters, I'm just curious if you have a timeline in terms of the coordinating board discussion with regard to extending, if you will, if nothing else, the practice that is currently in place for spring 20 and summer 20. Dr. Freeman isn't an institution similar to ours, but there are others where you have mixed calendars. So we're already into an academic year for some of our year-long programs. So I just was curious if you had a sense of timeline.
Well, yesterday when I brought this up, they didn't have a timeline when they gave me the answer. They just said that they were in the process of discussing, and they understand that these situations are out there due to COVID. They were very accommodating when it first started and we had to move to online. So I really can't give you an actual definite timeline at this current point, but I can bring it back up again to them to let them know that this is a concern, and that that you were looking for an answer and guidance on this particular issue.
Andrew, this is James Goman.
Oh, there you are. Thank you, James.
Yeah. So I know that UNT had, Elizabeth Vogt from UNT had approached me about this issue, the issue of international students and their enrollment and what's going on with that. And I brought that to the attention of agency leadership. But I believe that since that there are statutory issues involved, residency is one of the things that's pretty carefully delineated in the education code. I believe this issue has had to be forwarded to the governor's office. So I believe that's where it is now.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And I believe now I'm glad you said it was UNT because Patrick, when you were describing the situation, it sounded exactly what we were discussing and when I was talking with James about it. So that must have been you, that same situation.
Yes, that's accurate.
Great. Any other questions on the COVID distance education accommodations? Okay. With that, we will go to the second item under coordinating board updates, which is the state authorization reciprocal or reciprocity agreement, excuse me, Sarah. And I believe Jessica, that is you.
Yeah. So I have something I want to share before I get into the policy updates with Sarah. NC Sarah is in the process of developing a feedback cycle where they're going to solicit feedback from our Sarah participating institutions as well as Sarah member states on Sarah policy. So some of you that serve as the Sarah contacts for your institutions should have received an email directly from NC Sarah. I'm asking for your feedback on that policy. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like in the future. It may be, the state, I may be reaching out to the Sarah institutions and kind of filtering that feedback through the states, or it may come directly from NC Sarah. But I thought that was something really important to share because, we have new leadership with NC Sarah right now. And so I think that's a positive step for them. So the NC Sarah board met in May and they approved a few policy changes. The first two changes are mostly for the states. We are now required to have a process for reviewing institutions for provisional Sarah membership, which provisional means that institution doesn't necessarily meet all of those basic requirements for full membership. For instance, maybe there are institutions on probation with their accreditor, or for non-publics, maybe their financial composite score isn't at the 1.5 or where it needs to be for full participation. So I'm working on that because I know there are some institutions that have been denied, because they haven't met those requirements. So that's another positive change. And we're also states are required by January 1st of this year to have an appeals process in place. So those institutions that may be denied initial membership or renewal will now have a procedure in place to appeal that decision. So that process has been written into rules. Those rules are going before the coordinating board in October. Once everything's approved, I'll have that process posted to our website. I don't anticipate having to use it. I can say in the 4 or 5 years we've been doing this, and we've only denied 2 institutions, and that was because they didn't meet the basic threshold of Sarah. They weren't accredited or something like that. So that's good. There are 2 big changes that will impact Sarah institutions. One of those has to do with the reporting requirements. Sarah participating schools are required to report their distance education enrollments and out-of-state learning and placements annually. Starting in January, NC Sarah is going to have a penalty for those institutions that fail to report. That could mean your institution is put on provisional status for your Sarah membership or denied Sarah membership. So that's something to keep in mind. But it hasn't been an issue for Texas in the past. We've had near 100% reporting. So I wouldn't anticipate that, but just be aware for those of you that do. I know quite a few of you do serve as our Sarah contacts. The other change is for the professional licensure disclosures. So as we all know, those federal regulations are coming down the pipeline. They'll be going live next week. NC Sarah has decided to align their professional licensure disclosure policy with that of the federal regulations. So it's going to mirror it completely. Sarah will require the general disclosures as well as the direct disclosures. The one difference with the Sarah policy is for those direct disclosures, which direct disclosures are made directly to the student once they have been admitted to the program or seeking information for the program. So for the direct disclosures, if your program does not lead to licensure in the state the student is located in, or your institution cannot determine if your program leads to licensure in the state where the student is located, NC-SARA policy requires your institution to provide the contact information for the relevant professional licensing board in the student's location. To sort of help with that, NC-SARA has gotten with all of the participating states, and they have on their website a professional directory list. That only includes the licensing boards for common professional licensing programs like teacher education, nursing, counseling, things like that. So 2 things I did want to kind of talk about as far as the federal regulations. I have been receiving a lot of questions about those, especially as we are inching closer to that go live date. One of the big ones I always am asked is, which programs do we include in these disclosures? So any degree program that leads to licensure or is advertised as leading to licensure will need a disclosure. And that gets confusing because, you know, there are over 1,300 different licensed professions in this country, and some states license certain professions and others don't. So the advice that NC-SARA has asked the states to give is to look at how your programs are marketed. If it's marketed as leading to any sort of licensure, then you'll definitely need to do a disclosure for those programs. The second thing I receive a lot of questions on, or I'm asked for example language for those disclosures. Unfortunately, we can't provide that because each institution is unique. So the advice that NC-SARA legal counsel has given and they have asked the states to give is to go back to your institution's legal counsel. Again, that legal counsel at your institution is going to need to look at the marketing of your program on your public facing sites, especially. So, I mean, that's really all I have. I do encourage you, if you have any questions, WCET-SAN has a fantastic manual for the disclosures and other federal regulations for state authorization. It's a massive manual, but it has some great information. And also the NC-SARA website, they have some archived webinars on there where you can go through and watch the webinar, click through their PowerPoints, and they have FAQs. So those are 2 pieces that I think I've been kind of directing people towards because those are great resources. And with that, that's really all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none. Jessica, thank you for your update. Moving on, coordinating board updates. The next one is Open Education Resources Grant Program and an update on TechScore. Andrew, that is Kyla, right?
Dr. Kyla Torrey, yes.
Torrey.
I'm gonna share my slides. Y'all see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to just give an update on a couple of the open educational resource initiatives that are going on, including the grant program. I'm going to talk about Senate Bill 810, focusing on the grant program. I realize there are some other pieces to that, and I'm happy to answer questions about the other pieces too, but I'm going to focus on the grant program for this presentation. And then talk about House Bill 3652 from this last legislative session, which is the state OER repository. So the grant program first. The grant program, I've talked to LTAC about it before, so many of you have probably heard this, but just as a review, it's meant to encourage faculty to either adopt, modify, redesign, or develop courses using only open educational resources. And of course, open educational resources are resources that are licensed in such a way that they can be remixed or reused or resourced by faculty. So in 2018 was the first round of this grant program. And at that point, THECB gave grants of $8,000 to faculty who created one course using only OER, and $16,000 to faculty who did multiple courses using only OER. These grants are a little unusual in that the funding is given directly to faculty. It doesn't go through the institution, but the institution is required to sign the application note just to say that they know that the faculty is applying for the grant, and then we notify the institutions when faculty are awarded. So for the 2018 awards, we received 41 eligible applications and gave away 15 grants. The beginning of the grant period was in October 2018, and it goes until the end of August of 2021. It's a long grant period because the faculty are required to first find, adapt, create whatever resources they're going to use, and then they have to teach the course courses using those resources 4 times within the grant period. And they report to us 3 different times over that period: student savings, the number of students who took the course, other faculty who adapted the materials, that sort of information. So I'm sure many of you have seen this chart before, but these are the 2018 grant recipients. You can see we have a pretty good mix of 2-year and 4-year institutions and a pretty wide range of courses. We kept it to a Texas core curriculum courses, lower division in the first round. So all of those are core curriculum courses that are in the ACGM. The grant program was renewed during the 2019 legislative session, and the 86 legislator appropriated $112,049 for the grant program over the biennium. So there's another round for a second request for applications has been released as of May. Initially, the application deadline for the program was June 15th. Because of COVID, end of semester, all of those things, it's since been extended about a month. So the deadline is July 20th now. So there's still time to get in an application if any of you or any of your faculty are interested in this program. There's information, including the RFA and some supporting documents on the website, which is here. It's linked in the PowerPoint, which I think all of you got, but then it's also written out here. So we changed the grant program a bit for this second round. And there are 2 types of grants that are possible. The first is development grants, which is a maximum of $25,000 for faculty or teams of faculty who are going to either develop new OER or substantially improve some existing OER. Again, we're keeping it to core curriculum courses for this round, and we're focusing this time on the core curriculum courses that are most transferred. So there's a list of the 50 most transferred courses on the website with the RFA, and those are the courses that we're focusing on for this round. The development grants are the first type of grant, and then implementation are the second type of grant, and that's up to $5,000 for faculty or teams of faculty who want to redesign a course to incorporate existing OER resources. We're encouraging for this teams of faculty, including teams of faculty cross institutions. So if a 4-year institution wants to partner with a 2-year institution, or if faculty from a 4-year institution want to partner with faculty from a 2-year institution, that is encouraged for this round of the grants. And we're expecting to give approximately 5 or 6 development grants and maybe 20 or 25 implementation grants, dependent on applications and appropriation and all of that. So like I said, the application deadline is July 20th now. I'm expecting the announcements to be in September. The applications do have to be reviewed by 3 expert reviewers according to the statute. So we got nominations of faculty from institutions who were interested in being reviewers. Because we extended the deadline, it's a possibility that the announcement of grant awards will also be pushed out a little bit, but I'm hoping to have it all reviewed and done by September. And then the grant period, again, will be quite long, ending the end of August 2023. And that's again because the faculty have to teach 4 times using the materials. I should say that we did get the first reporting from the 2018 grants. So faculty probably taught the first time in the fall because they took the first bit of the grant period to develop their resources, and then some of them maybe have taught in the summer, last summer, but most taught for the first time in the fall using the OER. And the first legislative report that includes the data from those progress reports from faculty is going to the board for approval in July. So it will be available on the website with some data about the program after July, assuming it's approved by the board. Okay, the other projects that we're working on right now with OER is a state repository. So in the last legislative session, we were asked to create a repository for OER specific to Texas, working with an outside vendor, because in 2017, there was a study about the feasibility of creating an OER repository in Texas, and what came out of that study was that it was better to work with a vendor who was accomplished in this area rather than trying to start something from scratch. So the THECB has contracted with the Institute for the Study of Knowledge Management and Education, who are the creators of OER Commons, which is one of the largest OER repositories, to develop a Texas microsite. And we're calling it the OER TX repository, or OER text repository. And it is scheduled to be launched by September 1st of this year, according to the statute. So we are on track so far to get that done. It will probably be rolling because we'll still be adding resources to it after September 1st, including resources from the grant program, but we're on track to have it up anyway by September 1st. And all of the grantees from the 2018 grant cycle and all of the future grantees from the 2020 grant cycle will be required to upload or link their resources to the microsite once that's up and running. Okay, so this is the website for the grant program, the email from the grant program if you have any questions about that, and then my email if you have any questions about any of this. And I'm going to turn this off, but I'm happy to answer any questions about any of that.
I have a question, Dr. Torrey. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Will there be a restriction or limits if, like my university, we did receive a grant in the last cohort? Is that going to be a issue in the next one?
So your institution did, you said?
One of the professors at my institution at Prairie View.
Yeah, there's no restriction on other faculty from the institution receiving a grant. Because the 2018 grant period is still ongoing, the same faculty member can't receive the 2020 grant because you can't be getting a grant for OER and get another grant for OER. But other faculty are welcome to apply. That's not a problem. I did want to mention, I know at last time at the LTAC meeting, the text lore came up, which was a learning object repository that was through the Texas Digital Library, and I think University of Texas at San Antonio had some input in that. And so I've been trying to track down if any of those resources are still archived somewhere. And so far the answer seems to be that they're not. Certainly not through the Texas Digital Library. I'm still trying to figure out who I can talk to at UT San Antonio about that, but it seems to be that when that was not funded any longer, that it was not archived. That's what I see so far, but I will continue trying to answer that question to see if we can get any of that in the new repository if possible.
I have a question. Thank you for the information. Maybe you mentioned this, but can you share any details in regards to the focus this time in terms of OER, if there is any specific, I don't know, like STEM or business, or it's just an effort to continue to widen what is available?
It's to continue to widen what's available. We are focusing on core curriculum courses still, and mostly on courses that are the highest transferred courses. So if you look on the website, there's a list of the highest transferred courses, core curriculum courses, and applications that address one of those courses will receive priority points. So you can apply for any core curriculum course, but if it's one of the most transferred courses, then the application will receive some extra points.
Okay. And another question. Can you tell what has been the participation or the response from faculty when these calls are made? I mean, is it high participation or low? I mean, is it within the desired thresholds?
You mean other faculty other than the grantees, or I don't understand the question.
I guess when you make the call, the number of people that then respond.
Oh, I see. So the deadline is a little bit out still since we extended it, but I've received a number of inquiries and quite a number of applications so far already. So okay. I think it will be there's a lot of interest, I think.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, thank you, Kyla. Any other questions from the committee?
I have one, Justin.
Yes.
This is Patrick Flush at UNT. Dr. Torrey, thank you for this information. Very helpful update. Look forward to seeing the first legislative report once that's available after the meeting in July. So I was involved with TextLore and being on what was DAC at that time, now LTAC. That was probably a dozen years ago or more. And one of the challenges was, okay, we've paid for people to develop and we've put it in a repository. How do we get people to then adopt it and use it? So I'd love to hear any strategies that you have around, okay, we've built it, how do we get people to come? And then the other is beyond populating it with the funded materials from the grant programs. Are there strategies that you're working on to invite others to contribute where there is no financial incentive for them to do so? It's just the right thing to do.
Sure. To your first question, how are we going to get them to come if we build it? I think those are conversations that we're just starting to have right now when we talk about what the launch will look like. There are plans, and this sort of addresses your second question too, but there are plans to get institutions involved in this process. So the contract that we have with ISKME right now, they will provide a number of resources from OER Commons to populate the repository initially. So we can curate some resources that meet the needs of Texas institutions to initially populate some of the repository. And then the second stage is going to be working with institutions to encourage them to share resources that they're already using, an OER that's already been successful. I think as far as maintaining things, for the grantees, they're sort of required to give a maintenance plan for their resources, so that's one thing. The nice thing about working with ISKME and sort of building off of OER Commons is that there's a rating component, and faculty can leave comments and things. So there's a marketplace component as far as what resources are helpful and faculty have been using, and then hopefully we're able to build a community that keeps those up to date and useful for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any additional comments, questions? Okay. Going back to next item under THECB updates is an update on the community college baccalaureate degrees. And I believe Dr. Lofters, that's back to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lauder. This is a very brief update. Just going to let you know, share my screen. Just give you a brief update on Are you able to see that?
Not yet, but it seems to be coming. There it is.
All right. It might be because it's raining here in Austin. Very hard. Right now, these are the, as you know, certain community colleges are applying, for baccalaureate degrees. They have to go through a process for application, and they go through a review, pretty strenuous review. Since our last meeting, which was November, I want to say November 2nd, 2019, we've had a few more baccalaureate degrees that have been approved. I believe the Dallas County Community College District would have been after our last meeting, even though it was November. Same with Weatherford College. Those are two new ones. Now, Weatherford is a BSN degree that is 100% online. That one has been approved. Since that time, we've also had Austin Community College with a BAS in software development. Del Mar College with a BSN degree. Doesn't seem to be an online delivered degree. Laredo College, I'm sorry, take it back. Where's one more I saw? Oh, that might be it. That's it from the last time that we had the meeting. So this is just a brief update on the new degrees for the community colleges that have been approved at the baccalaureate level. Not sure. This was provided to me by the program director in academic quality and workforce, Dr. Sherry Reynes, who's been over all of the community college baccalaureate degree reviews. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question, Andrew. For the Weatherford College 100% online BSN, I'm guessing that means 100% online except for clinical? Or is this an RN to BSN program where they're already have their initial licensure?
And I'm gonna start this off, but I'm gonna welcome James or Stacy to chime in. From what I understand, they had to have a associate's degree program first that went on to the baccalaureate degree. So if I'm not mistaken, this would be like an RN to BSN. Am I saying that correctly? Would either one chime in?
So I'll chime in, and hello to everyone. And I apologize for being late to the meeting, but I love the discussion that you're having. Always good to see you, and thank you for your work and being on this committee. I really appreciate it. So yes, all the BSN programs are really RN to BSN programs. And some may require clinicals, but these are primarily already working nurses who are going online to get their BSN. So they're really completion degrees. Every single one of the community colleges that is offering this RN to BSN already has an AAS in nursing, so which leads to the licensure of the RN.
Right.
Happy to answer any other question.
Thank you, Dr. Silverman, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, Andrew, just one thing I may suggest is on all of these BSN ones, put in parentheses RN to BSN, just because standalone BSNs are initial licensure programs, but RN to BSNs are as Dr. Silverman put it, completion degrees. just so that there's no confusion on these being initial licensure BSN compared to BSN completers.
It is so noted. I will give that information over to Dr. Reynes. I'm not sure if is there any problem with that you see, Dr. Silverman?
No, we're happy to make that change. I think it's a much needed change. Thank you, Justin, for encouraging that one.
You bet. And Andrew and Stacy, thank you for continuing to update us on these baccalaureate degree programs in community colleges. Although only Rutherford is mentioned as a fully online program, I would imagine most of these have some significant online components and things like that. So it's very interesting for the committee to get that information and the regular updates. So we appreciate that.
I will stop my sharing if there's no other questions.
Moving on in our agenda, we have got at our last meeting, at our main meeting, we were fortunate to have Commissioner Harrison Keller join us to discuss kind of LTAC's works and also his priorities and answer some of the questions. As part of the materials that Christina sent out, we did include the executive summary that Patrick and I put together on the comments that were shared in the Google Doc that we as a committee kind of crowdsourced and we all made comments on and added our own thoughts and questions and things like that. And so Patrick and I took all of those comments and then kind of put them together into an executive summary and this working document. Hopefully you had a chance to look at it. We did not include every comment. What we try to do is put things into themes and give some general overview of kind of what the committee thought and talked about. And as you can see from the document, in looking at our comments, we came up with a couple of general themes based on everybody, what they put in. For the first kind of area discussion, what can LTAC do to support the THEP and a commissioner? So we saw a number of people that talked about the need to increase support for online and distance learning students. And then we also saw that, especially right now, we need to work to help increase public confidence in online education. And then for the second question on what we would like to see the commissioner and coordinating board do, once again, we put those into some thematic areas. One, which we have talked about multiple times, it comes up on the Distant Education Survey and it comes up in this meeting, the possibility of leveraging cooperative purchasing power and statewide, either MSAs or statewide negotiations, similar to what the Virtual College of Texas did for some products at one point. The second kind of theme on that area was clarify and strengthen online program and distance education reporting requirements, especially in light of COVID, to kind of work through that. We as a LTAC committee have done a tremendous amount of work to update the principles good practice for online learning, especially with one of our previous members, Michelle, who really did the lion's share of the work when she was on the committee, kind of working through that and clarifying some of the comments and things there. And then the other one that came through loud and clear in our comments and in our discussions was the idea of looking at providing resources to increase access to research and professional development opportunities instructors, increased internet access to learners. We took the current, OER grant program as kind of a foundation here, and some ideas on what might work, and talked about repository for information, best practice documents, and then we asked for help in promoting and encouraging the completion of the LTAC learning survey that we have done over the past 5 years. Of course, Patrick working quite a bit to design and develop that survey, and UNT hosting it, and then Mark Garcia helping to look at doing a database or a repository of information from the survey that could be accessed and utilized there. So Patrick and I took all of these comments, and he and I met virtually a couple of times to go through these. We hope we kind of encompassed all of your comments. You had great comments that were submitted and worked through. I got comments emailed to me and also on the Google Doc. So we really appreciate the work you have all done. Patrick, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, do you want to go ahead and go into kind of next steps and the discussion with Commissioner Keller and his enthusiasm for working through these?
Sure. So earlier this week, Patrick and I actually had a meeting with the commissioner. He reached out to us after we sent this executive summary, and he asked us to have a meeting to walk through all of these things. And I think we had originally scheduled a meeting for about 30 minutes, knowing that his schedule was fairly booked, and we talked for an hour. And so it was great. And I think just for the committee, and of course coordinating board staff as well, I think the commissioner is very engaged in online or technology enhanced learning, and he wants to really be an advocate for this area of instruction and things like that. From my notes, and Patrick, please jump in as well. He spent a lot of time talking about our comments here, especially in the idea of facilitated networks and having opportunities for folks to collaborate in many of these things. Talked about the idea of kind of a hub functioning, curated resources around effective teaching practices. Of course, state level negotiation is not necessarily something that could be done, but coordinated in terms of sharing of MSAs and things like that that might be possible, so that schools can leverage what other people have already looked at. Looking at ways to increase the OER repository, of course, like what Kayla was talking about here, and so adding to it and making sure that is a great thing. One area we did discuss was the possibility of working with Rice and OpenStax, and maybe seeing if OpenStax would be willing to come to a future LTAC meeting and do a presentation on what they have been doing around OER and all of the great work that they've done there. Really, the big takeaway I got from the meeting is that he really wants to help us and encouraged us to find ways in which we can facilitate networks and facilitate discussions around either these themes that we've already come up with or others, to really showcase what other schools around the state are doing. Doing something where we showcase, maybe some great professional development that any one of our colleagues have put together. I'm sure we could go down the list of LTAC members here, and we probably all have some kind of best practice for teaching online, professional development course. Well, why can't we think about sharing that broadly, and showing that and showcasing it, pulling something from, and I'm just going to pick on people that I can see here on the screen. So pulling something from maybe TCC Connect and pulling something from UNT, and showing what a large online community college is doing and a large online university has, things like that. Really facilitating the opportunities to interact and network. Patrick talked about the ideas that and the things that we've already done with Texas DLA. Dr. Lofters, I know has done a number of sessions at Texas DLA to kind of share and showcase some different things happening at the coordinating board at the state level. I believe we talked one time about the PGP and one time about the survey and things like that. So he was interested in that. And then looking around at models and development. But he was very clear. He didn't want the coordinating board to become very prescriptive in this. He wanted the coordinating board to be supportive and the place in which they can help showcase and share materials. Patrick, did I miss anything from our meeting? I'm trying to read my handwriting here on these notes.
I have some Post-it notes here too that I had scribbled on at the time. And I think you got most all of it. You didn't mention the possibility of looking at other professional development or professional organizations beyond TXDLA, which we did highlight because so many of us are members already, and it is a great way to reach others across the state. Including those who aren't members of LTAC, of course, but also the prospect of working with other professional organizations such as WCET or UPSIA or OLC, and there was enthusiasm for that as well. I think you hit the highlights, the facilitated networks being a mechanism to accomplish so much of this, whether it is the survey or working towards collaborative purchasing or professional development. Thought that popped into my head about the curation of the professional development. Just at our last meeting, there were a whole bunch of links that everybody contributed about, hey, here's a crosswalk of how we're teaching people to convert their face-to-face classes to remote in this time of COVID, and other things about here's what you must do or must consider when changing modalities. That's great content. And I put it all in one little page just for our internal use at UNT to share around. But that seems like that would be great content for OER Commons as well, if it's not limited to for credit content. If we could put some of our professional development resources out there, that would be a way the coordinating board could contribute to that by providing the space for us and the encouragement for us to do that type of collection. But overall, I was just, I texted Justin afterwards. I was like, that was an amazing call, wasn't it? We were really thrilled to have that much time. But it wasn't just lip service, hey, I'm listening. It was, I want to do something. How can I help? How can we engage? Great respect for all of the committee members. He mentioned how much he appreciated your contributions, and we're grateful for those too. So, and I think there is a commitment of resources that will be forthcoming based on this nurturing of this relationship. So I think this is going to be really fantastic for not just LTAC, but for our community of online educators and administrators across the state. So really, really excited.
This is Charlene. I'm excited as the incoming president of TXDLA that you're promoting what we're trying to do to spread, distance learning across the state. So that's awesome.
Congratulations on that leadership position. It's fantastic. TXDLA is in good hands.
Any other thoughts and comments? Questions from the committee? Thoughts from our coordinated work colleagues?
So I'll just reiterate, I'm so happy that that the commissioner was able to talk with you, and I will say, getting still to know him, he does mean what he says, and he likes to get things moving along. So your help is going to be so important, and you are all very valued. So I again just appreciate you all and thank you, and so glad to have you helping us at the agency. So thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Silverman. So for the committee, in terms of next steps, I'm not sure what that actually means. The commissioner indicated to Patrick and I, he was going to think through some things and ideas and probably circle back. I think from our committee, a couple of things, especially the ones that we highlighted as things that we think we could do to assist the commissioner and the coordinating board. We could probably spend some time at a future meeting, maybe discussing these areas and what we can do to help these couple of different themes that we've come up with. I will say we sent him our comments, Patrick, what was that, about a week ago, and we had the meeting with him this week. So he may have comments back to us and some ideas there, and if he does, we can of course share them out and things like that. But I think we've started a great conversation with the commissioner and that. So,
Dr. Lauder, one thing to mention before we move on. We had a lot of people participate and contribute ideas. We did our best to synthesize those into the document that you see on the screen shared now, but it doesn't mean we captured every idea or all the best ideas were even contributed. So if there are other things that as individual members that you can think of that we need to raise to the forefront, please don't hesitate either to contribute those here in this forum or email Justin and I and say, hey, this is a new opportunity or something that seems like it was a gap. Would you bring this up as well? We'd be pleased to do that.
okay. Well, then we can move to our next item on the agenda. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Our next item on the agenda, which is, sorry, I lost my place. Item number 7, discussion on high flex practices. However, before we get into that, we've been sitting here for about an hour and a half. Does the committee need maybe a 5-minute stand break? I'm seeing lots of nodding of heads. So we will go ahead and let's take a 15-minute break and be back at 11:47. Does that work? Okay, so we will take a quick break. And for those of you watching or streaming at home, LTAC is taking a break, and we will be back at 11:47. Okay. We are starting to come back together, and it is 11:47. So I will call the meeting back to order after our break. Still have some people out, so we'll give everybody a couple of more minutes to get going. All right, so as we're coming back, let's see. So Dr. Mock, it looks like you're back in your office, right? You're working in the office, not at home.
I am at the office, yes.
And then I can't tell, let's see. Daniel, are you working from home or are you at your office?
No, I'm working from home also.
Okay. I'm basing my questions on the backgrounds that people have. So, you know, those of you with couches and beds in the background, I figure you're probably working at home. But I can't tell on all of you. So, okay, there we go. We've got everybody back. And so we will go into kind of our next discussion, which is a discussion on high flex practices. This was something that came up at the last meeting. We were all kind of talking about where we were going as campuses in the fall with the idea behind high flex, which seems to be the word of the day right now in higher ed literature. And so we wanted to take some time talking about that. And so just to kind of put some numbers on it, let's maybe the next 30 minutes or so, we'll see how the conversation goes around high flex and how your campuses are looking at that and what that's gonna look like and things of that nature. I also want to say thank you to, I know I emailed a number of you asking for ideas behind or ideas on how you are looking at doing maybe synchronous video instruction in the fall, and a number of you responded to my personal question there. It wasn't an LTAC question, but it was a personal question there. A couple of you actually had responded with ideas behind the technology you're going to use, and then many of you had the same response I did. We don't really know what we're doing, but will you please share what you find out? So that may help kind of frame this conversation as well. So I just want to open it up to the group. What are y'all thinking about on high flex? What have you seen in the literature? What have you seen on your campus? Things like that.
I'll go first. This is Charlene, because I know I have to get off the meeting soon. At Prairie View, number one, I had an opportunity to do a high flex webinar with 100 and something people through Texas Distance Learning. So it was very interesting. It was so interesting that we're going to have a part two because we never answered all the questions that everyone had. But at Prairie View, what we're right now doing is we're looking at technology, for instance, cameras, microphones, needing the time to possibly install them in our classrooms, to know that we need to now get the invoices out, order them before you all order them and there's nothing left, so that we'll be ready for when fall begins. And we're looking at having cameras where we have Canvas at our campus, and we're going to have the faculty log into Canvas, initiate their Zoom conference from there, and then students will log into Canvas, and we'll have, we're going to use high flex. I call it augmented, because with true high flex, which is, hybrid flexibility, the students would normally, if we weren't in this pandemic, they would choose when they come to class or not. We can't do that. We have to actually control how many students are in the class. So I call it augmented high flex, where still haven't figured out the scheduling or how we'll divide it up, but some students will be in physical class, some students will be away. We're also finding out that a lot of people assume that 50% of the students will be in class. That's not true, because with true social distancing, that becomes an issue. It may be 30 or 40%, depending on the classroom. So we're working through the process of ordering equipment, getting it invoiced, testing it, making sure that we test it with instructors to make sure that we are not making this a hardship on faculty, if we get back to campus. So we've gotten a little bit farther along where we actually have our processes in place. So that's where we are.
We're doing a lot like what Charlene mentioned. We're creating Zoom rooms for faculty who need to deliver live lecture to some students, synchronous lecture to others. In those classes, students will rotate which days they are in the class and which days they are remote. We call it a COVID count, where the deans are literally going in classrooms and determining what the number can be in that classroom. Some of the course limits have been reduced to reflect those numbers. Some have not. Some will do the hybrid situation. And then we're also using our rooms a little more creatively with the off-peak times. So our College of Business seems to have some of the larger classrooms. And so we will probably also see a shift in other colleges going over to that building and using the large lecture halls in order to accommodate what would be a normal sized class, but with the social distancing protocols.
I have a question for Charlene and for Pam. So are you giving students an option to do either or
No.
how are you setting that up? Okay.
We're not. They will be given literally a Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday rotation where, you know, Mondays they will be in class, Wednesday they will remote, Friday they will be in class, Monday they will remote. And the class will be split with the maximum number in the classroom adhering to social distancing, and then a smaller number in a synchronous lecture. So as it's less of a burden to the faculty, every Zoom room setup will be the same. So the faculty will know what to expect. And we use D2L, so they can link it into D2L if they want to put the supplemental materials in, probably a lot like Charlene is doing with Canvas. I have no idea if it's going to work yet. You know, this is all in our head at this moment. And I suppose if the governor does a quick mandate like he did this morning with no notification, with activities shutting down tomorrow, then we may all be scrambling again like we did in March.
Right, and I would say the same. We are, we're gonna let the students know which rotation they will be a part of. Don't know what that looks like. That's not in our area. We just know that we'll have a number and we'll know this number will be here, and we'll make sure that the distance students are handled. I'll tell you, in the webinar that we had yesterday, the biggest complaint or the biggest concern is engagement. And that's a big deal. We had someone on from San Antonio, Texas A&M University, San Antonio. In the spring, they just did hybrid or high flex, nothing to do with the pandemic. So it was interesting from that institution, they're actually going away from high flex because of the issue of, you can imagine with students having the flexibility, they lost the attendance that they normally would have had, you know, having the choice. But I hope that it's going to be different because we're all in the same boat, and it's not this flexibility that the students would have in a different setting. But in student engagement was the big deal. Lots of people were asking questions about how do we keep the students engaged from a distance and face-to-face? How do we support faculty? Also, we worked with Tarleton on kind of stealing their idea and then making it fit for Prairie View. The other thing we found was that they're hiring students to support the faculty, whereas we hadn't thought about the physical faculty, if it were up to them, they want a red button in the classroom to be able to push so, you know, a technical person can come and help them. We're still trying to figure that part out.
Well, UH Clear Lake, I can give you our experience and what we're going to be doing. They have, at each of the colleges, we were asked if you have either a face-to-face class or a hybrid 50-50 class, you had the option of whether you're going to go fully online in the fall, or if you're going to do some kind of, they're calling it bimodal Right now, 40% of the campus is still going to do bimodal. The rest will be fully online. The bimodal, the way I understand it, our room capacities can only be at 25%. So we'll be limited on how many students can be in a room at one time. So you may have a class of 30, but only 15 will be in the class at one time, and the other 15 would be watching live stream of the class. So that's how they're going to do that. And they're going to have two groups. So if this group one gets to go the first week and be in the classroom, then week 2, then the second group will be the one to get to be in the classroom and the other group be online. And they're also providing all of us with PPE that we need. They're going to be putting up plexiglass things in classrooms where students will be there. And they did decide to do a mask. So everyone will be required to wear the mask. The question came up, what if you have a student that refuses to wear it? Then they're going to have to be asked to leave the classroom. So that's kind of how UH Clear Lake's handling things right now. Although I know that may change because literally as I'm talking, they're doing a stay-at-home work order again for Harris County because now our hospitals are at a level 1 severe. So it could change, I don't know, but that's what we have planned so far.
This is Vicki in Galveston. Well, I'm not in Galveston right now, but that's where I normally am. And I think we're going to see a mixture depending on our different programs. Of course, we're all clinical-based programs, or most of us, at least in the School of Health Professions and Medicine and Nursing, of course. And I'll talk specifically with clinical laboratory sciences. My faculty were very uncomfortable with the idea of having students. They thought students would really get confused about when they needed to be there. Plus, we are holding laboratory sessions with them face-to-face, which is another challenge I'll talk about in a minute. So they decided not to go ahead and do all the lectures synchronously, but on by Zoom or Teams or Skype or whatever they've chosen to use. I don't think we've settled on the platform yet. And then they'll see the students in their labs and reinforce any material during that time. And so they'll be getting a mixture of face-to-face, but without the confusing of having students move in and out of the lecture or didactic classroom time. I think our biggest challenge is our big classes is the laboratories, because most of our laboratories can only hold about 10 to maybe 15 students at a time. And some of our programs are big enough that they're going to have like 4 or 5 different laboratory sections. And we don't have TAs to teach laboratory sections. It's all the faculty that do it. So it's really a challenge of how we're going to be able to handle that many students in our laboratories. And of course, the faculty workload is going to be tremendous based on that.
I'm Mary Gentry from St. Philip's, and in the spring, before spring break, we had already, our department, so I'm the kinesiology department, we had already done some courses that were high flex. So some students came on a Tuesday, some students came on a Thursday, the way it was, and it worked out with our labs. Not all our classes was like that. It was more of, we did a kind of a guinea pig round, like, let's see how this works with the handful of faculty that can handle it. And so after spring break, when this came through, we did stick with the synchronous, and everybody that was like that. And those that were teaching the high flex kind of this, we still kept them. You're going to come in on this day. You still have this lab, and we had to recreate some stuff. So now going in here for summer, everything switched. And now when we looked into the fall, we were considering, well, we can still do a high flex, how it would work with our students coming in, making sure, hey, this worked. So we had our risk management team come into our building, and our building is probably the oldest one on campus. And we need to figure out how many can actually be in the classroom at a time. Yes, we have 25% in the building, but what does that look like in the class with social distancing in our weight rooms and our studios and the gym? And we also had early college high school students that use our building, and that was noted that they won't be in our building. And so there was, I think, a 4-person max in our classroom when you look at it, after the 6 feet forward and backwards and front and back. And that's a low cap size. Even our weight room was about the same. And it was where, yeah, students have to get temperature checks. There's one way in, they got to exit a certain way. And then this was about 2 weeks ago, we put this plan together and okay, we can have still the high flex. We changed a lot to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday format to still be able to kind of have a cap size of 12, but hey, or, lower it to 12 and get by with 4 on this day, 4 on this day. And then looking, and then it came to our activity classes. And that was one that was a struggle because they have to wear a mask. They're going to be touching and then sweating. And I don't know about y'all, but I sweat a lot if I work out. And I'm thinking they're going to be pulling that down to try to breathe and go get water. And it's going to be a cluster mess. And so when talking to my boss, we were trying to figure it out, like, how can we make this work? And I said, these are our options. So what we decided, and it wasn't until probably last week when we were watching the news and noticed there was a double in numbers, increase in COVID numbers, and one of the areas where they said students are getting, or people are getting infected was because they're at a gym. I was like, oh my God, that's, our area, and so I had talked to my boss and I said, if I still can get by with lowering our cap sizes, we can go remote. Everything will be remote learning. We still have our online only classes, but everything will be remote. No one will have come to campus. But if we lowered enough, we decided that, like I'll do an inventory count, we're going to be able to issue students equipment that they can use to still do an activity class. So if they're taking a physical conditioning class, the instructor can build their program for that class based on what equipment we know the students are going to be using, right? We'll have a checkout process the first week of classes, keeping with all the protocols. And I think myself and my admin would be the only ones kind of issuing and distributing that kind of stuff. And then all our, of course, lectures, we talked about having, like Charlene said, videos and having the cameras in. Because sometimes it just works better when you can use your smart board. I don't have a smart board at home to be able to indicate certain things. And so we were looking, that's why everything went to remote learning or online. Now, all of our first aid classes, those require CPR certification with AHA. And so when we stuck with our protocols, even now with summer going on, it was stated, well, they can do all their testing online, the written stuff, but they still have to come in for the physical part of it. And so we're still waiting on protocols for that to make sure when are they cleared to come in and what does that AHA clearance look like? Because we have students that are in the allied health program and going into nursing and physical therapy, and they're going to clinicals and need their certifications. So that's one area that we're still working with our training centers to figure out what that looks like. I know American Heart Association did extend the expiration dates on all their cards. So that's how it was. It was a great thought process of trying to figure out this high flex and looking at it that way. And then it became, this is not going to work out with the way that numbers are going, probably going back into shutting it down. And so we just kind of had to regroup. And I think this was our best scenario of doing everything remote. No one will be on campus, but if half of our classes are lecture, the other half is activity, but being able to, it was a really hard time for students in the fall or this past spring, trying to work out and instructors trying to give them a workout remotely when knowing they have nothing. So you're putting a workout together with milk jugs and water bottles and a broomstick with, grocery bags on the sides. And so now we're trying to figure out, hey, to keep students engaged and to keep them motivated, like here's equipment that you'll be able to use and check out. The technology, making sure that our faculty are, those that are remoting in with their lectures, it's not just reading off the PowerPoint slides, making sure that they are engaged, because that was something that was really talked about at the end of the semesters and students got really disengaged because it's like, I can just read that. Why do I have to chime in? And if it's attendance. And so there is trainings and different things to kind of get, faculty, hey, there's different ways to set up your class and kind of be more engaged with that. And this is solely for those that are going remote. I mean, we have our instructors that teach online only and their courses are set up pretty well, but we've had to kind of change gears just due to what's going on right now in Bexar County and with the numbers, and it's made us change. And so I think at this point, what's happening, it's as of yesterday, I believe, my dean said that there's going to be probably hardly any classes will be on campus. Everything will have to switch to remote or online. Our allied health programs, they have our PTA, because they've got students got to come in for testing. And so they've switched their lectures to remote, but they will be coming into campus. I think there's 3 instructors or however many instructors that they have. They're going to split out these lab rooms. And I think it's 5 or 6 students per area, enough to spread those students out. But there's a strict protocol as they enter the building and a strict protocol as they end, and the cleaning processes that take place. And so it's a big switch over. So we plan for one, and we plan for this great high flex. And now we're planning for a different type of venture for remote learning, and hoping that it went from seeing screens like we see today with all these faces. And then at the end of spring, it was just seeing letters, these black screens with their initials on the screen, because they wouldn't want to see their faces. And we're trying not to do that. That's how do we keep them on and engaged and going. And so that's kind of where we are at St. Philip's College with our staff.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's the biggest conversation we're having here is those classes that have to have some kind of interaction because of the content is are some of the more difficult ones. Other colleagues, what are the conversations going on at your campus? How are y'all kind of defining high flex at your schools? And granted, as Mary said and others, I mean, as the governor changes, the new proclamation today, closing down all bars and moving restaurants back to 50%. And then a number of you are in some of our very large counties that have now had more work from home orders put in place by the counties themselves. So what are others' comments, thoughts, questions there?
Dr. Garza, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, hi, it's Rolando. Thank you. Just wanted to share some things we're doing here in Kingsville at Texas A&M Kingsville. All our classrooms already have a built-in webcam and the monitor. So 2 days ago, the provost was meeting with department chairs and deans. We've been very open with all the stakeholders. So they're going face-to-face, it's going to be face-to-face live, where faculty are going to log in to collaborate and record their lectures. Now, we've been looking at the research, and again, this is administration and a lot of at the A&M system, they've been having high flex presentations from various leaders across the country. We're kind of calling it like a co-flex kind of here, just because we want the faculty to work with their students. So they're teaching a hybrid, but they're going to basically kind of figure out the days and kind of the consensus for their students. And we also built 14 additional academic spaces due to our COVID density classrooms, capacity classrooms. So we built all that in place. Right now, we're kind of having some challenges with our traditional online, which I had a meeting this morning, but we're also looking at how our video conference, but we're calling it a web conference, because we do have some faculty due to, that want to teach an online, but also have the synchronous with the students Monday, Wednesday, Friday at a certain time. So we're looking at that as an OLC, an online course, but it's also is developed as a web conference course, not to distinguish away from our traditional online courses, which faculty have been designing for years and looking at the models. So we're working on some marketing right now with, campaign. I just had an email coming from Marcom about some information about workshops coming up. But one of the things we had challenges is here, I'm working with academic scheduling is under my unit. So I manage that on behalf of the provost. So working really closely with the classrooms and audio visuals under my realm too. But we had to shift our schedule from the 12 to 1 o'clock, shifted 1 hour forward to have that break in the day. So the cleaning of the classrooms. So that posed challenges. And again, working with department chairs, how to move all this forward. We're also working with the academic advisors to make sure the information that's getting sent out to students. We're hearing mixed things right now. Students want to come back to campus. A lot of the new freshmen want to come to college because, my high school was stayed at home with my mom and dad. I didn't have a graduation and prom and all that. So we have those students coming in, but we're also looking at how to do the safety of the classrooms. And You know, so many things are happening. One of the conversations I know I've had, and I don't know if y'all had, is a contact tracing, how to have students sign in into the room. You know, there's been conversations about an app being developed from the A&M system, or a QR code that's going to be on the board. You know, students have to snap, and it kind of tracks all that in all the rooms. So there's a lot of things, challenges happening. I just heard this morning, like the drawing class wants to teach outside. You know, hey, back in the days, right? You know, you go outside and you sketch on your thing. But the challenges we're having was some of, like, you know, the mathematics. I'm going to share a link inside the chat. It's a portable document camera that is actually a faculty in our certification program right now shared that 2 weeks with us, and it's a USB document camera, and she's using it in engineering, and we're trying to share that with mathematics. One of the other challenges is also bringing all the bandwidth on campus. You know, we're going to go live with more video and everything. So you know, I'm not on that side of the house, but I'm working with those stakeholders, and we use some of the funds from the CARE grant to help us out because our infrastructure is kind of, you know, at certain max. But those are the challenges we're having. Again, I'm working closely with the provost, my direct supervisor, and everyone else in the realm. And I'm just trying to get faculty and administration to have some clarity with definitions, because what we've been doing for so many years, and now they're mixing these models up, and I don't want faculty to get confused. And that's where the challenges we're having. But again, I know I threw some other things in there, contact tracing, cleaning the classrooms. But those are the things we're working on. And one of the things I definitely want to do is more stuff with the students, some workshops with students, some virtual workshops, and so forth. But, you know, we did a student panel 2 weeks ago with some students, you know, just getting their feeling, what they were thinking about. But again, the directives coming from administration and provost, the chairs and the deans, and making sure the clarity. Like right now, the challenge I'm having is we should have ran our fall classrooms on Blackboard to be start for development, but academic scheduling is changing every day due to the models. And they said they have it to noon. Oh, it's 12 o'clock. By noon today, finalize schedules, and we anticipate some changes are happening. Not maybe a couple changes, not 300 or 400 class changes, but those are the, you know, challenges we're having, and everyone is as well. So thank you, guys.
Excellent. Thank you, Rolando. We're having those same conversations at Tech. We are opening up our fall live class shell request on July 6th. But anybody that wants it earlier, we're giving them development shells so they can start now, because our poor registrar's office has been changing modality of every single course all summer, and it keeps going back and forth. We are trying. So we've done a study of all of the classes that are somewhat hybrid in the fall, and we know how many classrooms we have that have some equipment. I've gotten permission to purchase some equipment to outfit 10 more classrooms for hybrid delivery, but we know that's kind of a drop in the bucket, and so we're now surveying all faculty, or we will be next week, surveying all faculty that are teaching hybrid to find out exactly what they mean when they say they're teaching hybrid. Is it going to be a flipped model? Is it actually going to be a synchronous model? How are they going to do it? My biggest concern is, you know, I've heard stories of faculty, not necessarily on my campus, but other places, talking about teaching hybrid via FaceTime, where students will pair up and they will FaceTime each other, some in the classroom, some at home, and that's how they'll do it. So as long as we don't go down that path, I'm feeling a little better. But other people, how are the conversations going at your campus? I'm sure all of these things, what Charlene said, and Rolando, Michelle, and others have said, probably you take out their school name and put your and Mary and put in your school name, and it's probably the same conversation. So others, what have y'all decided, or kind of where's that conversation going? Carlos, did you have your hand up? I think I saw it.
Yes, a couple of things. As you know, we have an online campus, so certain things are kind of given for us and not necessarily a major challenge. So for us, we have been mostly supporting faculty on the face-to-face side of things with training and helping them transition quickly. One of the things, certainly starting from the beginning, our chancellor has instructed us that we will keep as much as possible online face-to-face courses that require, as you mentioned before, interaction or hands-on. If they can be transferred to online or moved, then do that. If not, then it's going to be a very limited, very low number of those courses. So from that angle of things, more recently, the college, and this is the 6 vice presidents of academic affairs, have agreed to extend or request that the online instructor certification that my campus provides for fully online faculty then gets made available to every faculty member at Tarrant, adjuncts, face-to-face, okay, in an effort to prepare the faculty towards the fall. Remember that in March, it was kind of an overnight thing, although, in a week or two, still overnight because you were not doing that before. So now we have a little more time to make things a little better and maybe correct certain things that were not necessarily present back then. This approach is going to be a hybrid. So, and hybrid in this case is asynchronous and synchronous rather than face-to-face and online. Rather than being just a self-paced training as we normally do, is going to be mediated, synchronously, because again, you want to provide some handholding to faculty there. This will be the full training that we provide to faculty. Is much more comprehensive than something that we did back in March, which we called Blackboard Essentials, which was technically survival skills, overnight type of thing, how you can, quickly navigate this type of challenges. The college, a couple of years ago, revise its definitions, if you will, for hybrid, and online is kind of a given for us, and we are responsible for online courses and programs by a policy in the college. So that element has been addressed. So I think that the college is exploring the opportunity to see how much hybrid could happen, okay? Because again, the instructions from the chancellor is keep online as much as possible. Okay, so it will be a challenge if we do that hybrid. My weekend college program, which is a hybrid, in true definition, face-to-face and online, is going to be completely online as well. So, but we will have more synchronous sessions. So what should have been face-to-face 6 p.m., 8 p.m. on Fridays will be now synchronously delivered via Zoom and MS Teams and all combinations of things. I just learned earlier today that the college acquired additional licenses for Zoom. So again, there is an effort to ramp up that vehicle for delivery. So those are some of those things. We continue to be the source for training and consultation with faculty, simply because we are, this is what we do, okay? So we are the experts in-house. So just wanted to share that.
Excellent, thank you, Carlos. So what I like to do is probably, about 12:30, at least by 12:30, we'll break into workout work groups. And in talking with Patrick and Andrew before the meeting got started, we know the doctoral subcommittee typically doesn't meet right now or during our meetings. The distance education definitions group pretty much did their work last year. The 50-mile radius group, we could get together, but there was so much overlap between the other committees, it's kind of hard to do that. So I'm thinking right now the Learning Technology Survey and the Inclusive Access groups would be the two that would meet as a breakout for about an hour this afternoon. And then what we'll do is we'll come back together about an hour after that to do final kind of report outs from the committee. And then we'll report out to the committee and talk about the next thing. So that's kind of where I'm thinking we're going to go. So about 12:30, we'll break into those two groups. So that gives about 8 more minutes to talk about high flex, because this is a very, very interactive and great conversation. So I think I saw Patrick's hand up. So Patrick, if you want to talk high flex there, and then we'll just kind of keep watching the time. And if we need to push the committee meetings beyond 12:30, we can do that too.
Thank you, Dr. Louder. So at UNT, it's very fluid. That's what we can all say, right? That's the commonality. It is a fluid situation. We have a plan A, a plan B, and probably a plan C. We have demand from students that they want to have the university experience. They want to come to campus. We also have faculty, many of whom are in high risk categories for an infection and adverse affections due to the infection. I'm curious to know, and we can do this by show of hands, how many of your campuses have mandated masks when and if people return to campus in the fall? Okay, some haven't yet. Ours was just made yesterday. It was, well, I know it was contentious because we had a return to campus meeting town hall that the provost hosted, and the question that came up from the faculty and staff who were there was repeatedly, what about masks? Are you going to require masks? And a decision hadn't been made at that time, just earlier this week. But I think with the climate in the state and state leadership and where we are, they went ahead and was like, you know, we have to deal with that as an issue that we make mandatory, and it's for any staff, any students, any faculty, any visitors. We are limiting any visitors to campus whatsoever, whether it's guest lecturers or anything else. In terms of some of the planning, we have a learning spaces committee. They've evaluated, as many of you have noted, the capacity of varying classroom styles. Fixed seating accommodates far fewer with social distancing in place than do movable furniture. For those instances where students would be in a classroom, they will be sanitized daily, but not at a noontime break, as Dr. Garza suggested, which I think is a great idea. But there would be kits for individuals to sanitize the area they're going to be in a classroom. So it'd be kind of a DIY, clean your own space when you come in, return the materials type approach. In terms of technology, all of our classrooms will have web cameras to allow Zoom if we don't go totally remote by that point. We also are investing in live captioning for those Zoom sessions, and it will be available in multiple languages. I don't have any details about the cost of that, nor the effectiveness of how well it does live captioning, but I did hear that from our VP in our technical areas. There's a commitment to provide live captioning. Colleges were able to propose face-to-face courses where they thought that was necessary. Those are being sorted through now. July 10th is when we expect to fully finalize our schedule, though fully finalized may not be a reality. As again, we emphasize fluidity and flexibility. All classes that are larger than 200 are definitely online. Let's see. We also are not returning to campus after the Thanksgiving break. All instruction, assuming that there are some things that go forward face-to-face, all instruction, all courses will be remote after the Thanksgiving break. The thought there is you don't want to send the students home and to remote areas of the state and then travel back to campus. It's just asking for spreading the infection further. And that may be, oh, we also, in terms of training faculty, we have a course in a box program that helps faculty work through some materials and develop courses fully online. We had this in place before COVID, but we have opened it up to all the faculty members who are possibly going to be teaching fully online or remote, and provided a pool of funds to pay a $500 stipend to faculty and to teaching fellows who would take that during the summer. It was first come, first serve. I think it's been exhausted at this point, but it was a good incentive to pay faculty and especially teaching fellows for their time to commit to this type of professional development to prepare for what's most likely going to be our circumstances in the fall. And I think I mentioned this last time, but all of our courses have a Canvas shell that is there available for the faculty member. It will be pre-populated with the students that are enrolled from our registration system, and faculty simply need to go out and claim it if they haven't already. So that would allow them very quickly to shift into fully online, even if they had, or fully remote, even if they had a course that was granted the ability to be taught on campus. So that's, I think, everything I had to contribute on that.
One follow-up to something Patrick said. We also have a shell for every class, but for the first time, I think the provost is going to require a minimum amount of material being every single shell, whether they are remote or on campus. That would be syllabus, course schedules, course notes, whatever other support materials, so that if there is a shift, like we saw in March, it will be less problematic.
The only thing that I would add to the discussion, as Vicki knows, because she's in the middle of this already, and as I had mentioned earlier, on a specialized campus, many of our programs are actually the full, almost a calendar year, starting at the end of June, beginning of July, and running through June, for like our medical school and our dental school programs. So we mix between traditional semesters and what would be called super semesters in a medical parlance. Our course design in the preclinical is a combination of both clinical simulation as well as lectures. So we have made a decision, any didactic lecture will be online to maximize what we have in the way of space on our campus. We have natural breakpoints in our large cohort groups where they are subdivided in teams, and we will use that team structure to put students through those face-to-face activities that are required as part of the accredited programs that we have in the health profession. So our biggest challenge is actually working with our clinical partners, which for all of you who have all of those external placements, that's the other wrinkle. You know, whether you're a teacher ed program and how are you getting your students going in through education programs for student teaching or any of the other licensure requirements or accreditation requirements. It's just that close interaction with clinical partners, community partners to be able to fulfill that part of the curriculum in as best manner as possible. The one thing that we are doing in our dental programs for dental hygiene as well as our DDS students is in our clinics, which we run, we actually run procedure, we do testing, pre-procedure testing, so that particularly in those programs, given the environment, if you're COVID positive as a patient, we ask you to reschedule your appointment. So that's part of some of the work that we're just doing at UTL San Antonio. Thanks.
Others that would like to contribute. I'm trying to look for hands, or if you do want to contribute, just jump in.
I was just going to.
Joyce. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so this is what we'll do. We'll do Vicki. Who was that talking?
Joyce.
Joyce. Okay, we'll do Vicki, Joyce, and then we'll go to Daniel Gonzalez. So Vicki, Joyce, Daniel.
Okay, I was just going to reiterate that our biggest problem we're having is our clinical sites. A lot of them, we use Memorial Hermann quite a bit, and they, because of the, we thought we were going to get students back in those clinical sites, and they have now retracted that with the uptake in cases in the Harris County. And we're having a tremendous issue getting the number of hours and for our students. I mean, we can only put so many in our own hospital. And so anybody that has any solutions on this would be really, I'd love to hear, because this is a tremendous issue for us.
Okay, I have solutions. Sorry. We're sort of doing it all at Blinn. We're urging our faculty, or not urging our faculty, we have many more blended courses this semester than in the upcoming semester than we've had in the past. We're going to 8-week semesters with a concern that the second wave is going to hit probably in October, and it will be easier to shift students mid-semester, and we also won't have them trying to do 5 courses online. We'll have them doing 2 courses online if they're in the 8-week format. And we're doing HighFlex. Our classrooms are being outfitted over the summer. We've gone to Zoom as our video conferencing platform. We have cameras that are actually will track the professor as he or she moves about the room. We are doing a lot of training this summer. We're community college. There are no stipends. You just come because you want the training, and all of our sessions are fully packed. If you missed Charlene's session, the session that Texas DLA did yesterday, I'd urge you to watch it because I think you'll find it helpful. We probably had 30 to 40 of the people in attendance at that session of the 100 or so who were there, because our faculty are so concerned. With regard for training for HighFlex, I'm going to our IVC faculty and asking them to help with the training because they have worked in that sort of bimodal or dual model where you have both remote and face-to-face students. And all of our training that's occurring in our blended sessions, we're working on making sure that our faculty have a lot of resources to go to build in that engagement piece for the remote students.
Okay, this is Daniel from Alvin. So we're experiencing a lot of the same thing that everybody else is. We've had a couple different challenges. So one of them, of course, has been our workforce courses in terms of clinical hours, practicum hours. So right now in the summer, those are really the only students that are going to campus, and they're going in staggered groups because of their building capacity. So for summer, all our courses are online. For fall, we had explored the HighFlex model. The challenge with us right now is that our entire campus is going through a renovation. So for us, campuses that or buildings that house classrooms, certain ones are closed for up to 90 days. And that's shifting between buildings. So there's like 1 or 2 buildings closed at the same time that house classrooms, and then that shifts to other buildings. So that's another challenge for us. But we also had a concern from a lot of faculty in that if we move to a HighFlex model and we give students the option of you go online or you go in the classroom, the classes weren't going to be in sync anymore. And so you're going to have one class at one point, you're going to have another class at one point. And so we had a lot of concerns from our faculty in terms of this is already a confusing situation right now. And then we're going to add, we understand that flexibility model, but then that's just going to put way more on us. In the spring, something that did not work well for us is that we did not tell our faculty that if they had to switch their face-to-face class that normally met 3 times a week from 10 to 11:30, we recommended that they keep that time, but not that they have to keep that time, to keep it flexible for our students. Then we started running into 2 instructors because we gave them instructors and students that flexibility. Well, now 2 instructors are trying to schedule a class Monday, Wednesday, Friday at that same time. So that's another issue that came up for us. For the fall, right now we have about 30% of our courses online, but we have our VP of instruction has has let our deans know that if any instructors are able to put their classes online, please do so. Because right now we still don't know what the fall is going to look like. So it's shifting a lot in the ways that everybody else is. It's 30% now, but we're thinking that it's probably going to go up for the fall. And so to be proactive with that, all our courses have Blackboard shells are already in Blackboard for the fall right now, which is a good thing. So one thing that we did that is going to work well for us is that if any of y'all have access to Blackboard data, the service with Snowflake, they sent me a query that you are able to run a report that indicates which instructors have not accessed specific course shells. So we ran a report for our VP of instruction that shows which instructors have not accessed their course shells for the fall, in anticipation that we see you haven't accessed your shell, but at the same time too, please be prepared to access that shell if we run into another situation just like we did in the spring, which, hey, we got to move everything online in 2 weeks. So we're starting to reach out to faculty more just in case they have not accessed their shell, but two, that we may run into a situation again where everything has to be put online. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And then of course, in between all of this, we switched proctoring services from Respondus to HonorLock. So that's a whole nother kink in the chain, but that's actually been a transition that's worked pretty well for us. We've already received very good feedback on that from both instructors and students. So we're going through that transition right now. And so that's, there's a lot of changes happening. Honestly, for the good at our campus because of this. We had already been struggling with Respondus as it was. And so this was what it took to get us to move to a more robust proctoring service anyway. So again, unfortunate, but a lot of things are happening that needed to happen for us.
Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sorry, I got a bunch of mics. On the BB data and the Snowflake, can you connect me with your admin? Because we just got access to it. I mean, because we updated our Blackboard environment in December, and we're still learning some stuff. We've been talking with John Floyd, our admin, but if we could just network and connect so we could kind of see the reporting y'all are doing, because we got an actual reporting from Blackboard that runs like a master one that has everything from the courses to the dates to the collaborate to the files to the how many items in the grade center. But I'm interested in kind of the reporting you could put together, and we could kind of collaborate and share. I'll put my email in the chat, but yeah, this is
definitely and
just helping each other, man.
No, I agree, because I've had to reach out to a lot of different people to see how to do something like that. And even on the Blackboard community, there wasn't a lot of people that really had that, and nobody really responded. So yeah, I'll share that with you. And our institutional research department, because they work with those data warehouses, they're very familiar with how to do those processes. So yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Excellent. Other comments on HighFlex changes and modeling at your campuses? Okay, Patrick, do we excuse me, do we want to go ahead and break into subgroup working groups? Well, we'll do kind of a working lunch. I'm sorry I didn't send you all sandwiches or something at home. But we will we'll break. Patrick, Patrick Andrew, I originally figured an hour, but that takes us to 1:40, and we're supposed to end the meeting at 2. So what are your thoughts there?
I would suggest that we could go into breakout rooms and have a lunch break until 12:30, and that gives us 30 minutes to report out.
Okay.
Whatever kind of discussions you had in there. How do you feel about that, Patrick?
I didn't catch that. You said go into lunch break until 1:30?
No, I said sorry. Yes, go into breakout rooms and and have a break for lunch, until 1:30, and then we'll come back at 1:30, and then we can report out whatever activities happen within the breakout groups.
Yeah, that sounds good. So we allow 50 minutes for both the breakout groups and for lunch. Do we want to make that kind of specific that there are 7 minutes for people to take a restroom break, grab a sandwich if they need to, and come back? How do we want to work that so that people can eat lunch while we have the breakout groups, but not have to be coming and going?
If I was to send it out, I would probably say, have lunch and everything until 1, and then everybody have their work groups until 1:30, come back and then report.
Okay, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and break everybody into work groups. I have pre-populated the learning survey and the inclusive access groups. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I've not done this before, so bear with me. I think if I send you out in the rooms, it'll push you into the breakout rooms for these 2 working groups. And then for our coordinating board colleagues, I think if I can still share my screen, I can put up the slide saying we're on a break till 1:30. That may mean I can't join a breakout room, but we'll see what happens. So I
was going to ask you if you would please put me in the inclusive access, just so I can give the background information, tell about the documents that we have in there. And also just want to put out, we weren't quite sure if it records in the breakout rooms, because I'm not sure. Did you find that answer out? Yes. Okay. So just be aware that it's possible it's recording. We're not quite sure. So just be aware about that.
Okay, I'm going to send us to breakout rooms and then we'll come back together at 1:30.
All right, Justin, that looks good. Thank you.
You bet. I'm going to mute my mic, and if you mute yours, I think we're okay. I have no idea what it looks like on YouTube, though.
I don't either. I think I'll go ahead and jump on YouTube at this point and see what it looks like.
Okay, perfect.
Bye, Stacy. Take care.
All right. Welcome back. We're still missing some, so we'll give everybody just a minute to come back.
Oh, here they come. Miss Christina. There we go. And before we get started, I was want to say, Dr. Louder, thank you for the experience of a breakout room. I've never done that before, and a lot of us others, we said that in the last meeting. That was interesting.
Yes. Well, good. I hope it worked. All right, it appears that we are all back. I know we've lost a couple of members because they had other meetings or phone calls they had to get to. So I'll call the meeting back to order. Hopefully you got at least a break for a quick lunch or something, and then a work group discussion. So it's about 1:35 or so. We will end at 2 to comply with the postings and all of that. So what I'd like to do is ask the 2 work groups to go ahead and report out. Hopefully you had a speaker identified. So what I'll do is we'll go to the survey work group first, and then we'll go to inclusive access. So who from the survey work group would like to kind of report out on work group matters?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. And want to thank everybody that was in that work group for active participation. That was fantastic. Some great ideas. So concentrated on 2 main issues that we need to resolve to move forward. One is when we might administer the survey, what we are proposing, assuming that we could get it through data collections and get a refined draft in front of them to have approved and be able to distribute, would be starting in mid-July, administering through mid-August, allowing 4 weeks for administration, which is longer than what it's been in the past. But that is taking into consideration that this may not be the first priority of all of those who are working through these challenging times and have other priorities to make sure their faculty and students are safe and that education can continue unabated into the fall in what we acknowledge is a quickly changing environment. And the other piece of that, so that's the when. Looking at the what, we didn't delve into all of the individual questions, but there were some keen suggestions I'd like to incorporate. Pam Morgan suggested that in addition to asking which tools individual institutions are used, ask that they also provide their current level of satisfaction with those tools. Because just because somebody has adopted it doesn't mean they like what they've got. So we will work on doing that as well and providing that information out. I think that would be incredibly helpful, not just as an aggregate number of here's the overall satisfaction with Blackboard, Canvas, but individual institution satisfaction with it as well. And the other thing that we need to focus on is are there questions we should emphasize or add that aren't currently in the survey that are addressing current circumstances responding to the pandemic? It may be that there are a lot of tools that institutions have recently and in an emergency situation adopted that 6 months ago, if we asked the same questions, they wouldn't have included any responses to. So we need to do some analysis of the questions we have and see if those are the most important ones to ask here, acknowledging that we have previous administrations of this survey and we'd like to maintain some continuity so we can do trend analysis over time, but also knowing that what may be most important to institutions right now is how they're dealing with the crisis and how learning technologies are helping them to do that. So that is the report for right now. There's nothing in particular to vote on or bring a motion forward, but would welcome any feedback on either the timing or on the content.
And just as a quick follow-up, Patrick, I sent to you and to Andrew the PDF trends analysis that I was able to pull up from my drive. Just so if you can circulate that out just as an information piece, or I'm sure Patrick, you or Justin might even have something even more up to date, but that's just the comparison of the last 2 surveys, just so those who are new to LTAC would know what questions we asked. So that's both in your inboxes. So just to let you know, I just sent it out.
Thank you, Dr. Mock. I appreciate that. And I will respond to that and add 2 other pieces. One, the last administration's results, and just the blank survey too, that has all the questions without the individual responses. So I will get those both to you, Andrew, as well as the trend analysis, and if you wouldn't mind circulating that to the full committee.
Not a problem. And if I recall correctly, we tried to put that up on the web before, but I think the problem was it was the accessibility issue with the coordinating boards. If that wasn't that where we were last time, I believe.
That's exactly where we were. Yep.
Right. So there's certain accessibility rules with the coordinating board with documents that we post onto the website. If they don't meet certain accessibility rules, they won't put them up. And I think it was the format of the survey responses or survey itself that it took a long time to get through.
It was all the tables.
Right, I think so.
Right, the tables and charts. And I had begun that work when I was still on campus. But when I started working remotely, my version of Word didn't support the same accessibility standards at home. So I kind of suspended that, but I need to figure out a way to get back around it. So I shared that information with the working group and acknowledged that it's not fully accessible at this point, and that's why it wasn't on THECB website right now. And Andrew, do you have any concerns about the timing and getting it through data collection subcommittee, knowing that they've approved previous versions of it, but we may have some content changes?
And tell me the dates, the time frame again. Just give me.
I haven't looked at a calendar to pick out weekdays, but we're discussing mid-July launch and leaving it open through mid-August, some 4 weeks in between that span.
Let me find out. What I need to find out is because of COVID-19 and there's no one at the coordinating board, how we're going through that process. Does it need to go in front of the data collection committee or not? It might not need, maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll find out and I'll get back to you.
Okay, very good.
Excellent, thank you. Now we'll go to the inclusive access. I'm sorry, Patrick, is there anything else you wanted to report on?
No, thank you.
Okay, so now we will go to the inclusive access committee. Hopefully there was a record keeper and a spokesperson named.
Well, we didn't have a record.
Your new chair.
We have a chair and a co-chair that can tell you what we spoke about.
So who are the new chair and co-chair of that committee?
So this is Daniel from Alvin. So I was nominated to be the chair, and then Rolando was nominated to be co-chair. And so I appreciate the nomination to this position. So I'm excited in that I think that'll give me a more active role in this committee. I haven't been on this committee too long, but I'm hoping this will give me a more active role in this committee. So what we discussed was where we're at in terms of this topic as a committee. So Rolando sent out the documents that Dr. Lofters forwarded to us in terms of Ohio Link and what direction we want to take from there. And so we were trying to nail down when we last met and talked about this, and so we figured out that it was at the September meeting, I believe, when everybody came on board. After that, I believe we had a meeting that had to be cut short. And so what was requested, which I'm going to recommend we do, is that the members of the subcommittee review all the materials that Dr. Lofters forwarded to us so that we can determine what our path is going to be going forward. So is it going to be with Dr. Lofters getting us in contact with the library group in terms of trying to do a partnership in terms of a statewide level or statewide contract? And so that's what we're trying to figure out in terms of what direction we're going to go, and if we're going to mirror what Ohio did, if we're going to go through, if we're going to use a different process. So that's where we're at right now. So we're in more of an exploratory stage right now to try to see what path we're going to take. But a lot of it's going to involve looking at the documents that Dr. Lofters forwarded to us to figure out what's there and what the next step is going to be. Okay, and Rolando, Dr. Lofters, I don't know if you have anything additional to add.
Just on when we get the documents, we're going to review them. I'm going to set up a doodle poll so we can meet, having some standalone meetings and gather content from the collective group. There was also other group members that participated on in regards to other services that's been out there. I think someone mentioned from Florida. They were from Florida. See, I'm trying to go through the panel. Robert, right? It was Robert mentioned, something from Florida that he knows that usually. But we're going to put some information together and hopefully move forward. At the end of the day, what we're here to is help the students and kind of see the services that are out there, and from the state level to the local level here at the coordinating board.
Excellent. Real fast, Andrew, for clarification, the subgroup can have meetings outside of the big group because it is not a quorum of LTAC,
Correct.
right?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
And just to add to what Daniel Rolando said, I actually lost connection altogether and had to do some text messages to get back. However, in the meantime, Daniel was able to explain to everybody what the whole inclusive access was. So I think he's a very good choice to be the chair. And like I said, I'll provide any help and assistance I can, and I'll get you all those documents, and then we can go from there. It's not a problem.
Excellent. That sounds good.
Dr. Lofters, a piece of historical connection here. Maybe you can help me remember and help with. It seems like when we first started discussing this, we were looking for others within coordinating board who could help us think about it and leverage it and pull it together. And there was a meeting during the lunch hour at one of our on-site sessions. It's probably been 1.5 years ago, with David Gardner, who I believe is Deputy Commissioner of Agency Operations and COO. And there were probably 4 or 5 of us in the room representing LTAC. And he was going to see what was possible in terms of beginning to think about how to deal with publishers and share some of the affordances that we've negotiated independently as institutions. But I think we've had people roll off the board that were very involved in that, like Stephen Levy at Houston Community College. But I wonder if there are some threads still out there that we can gather back together with Dr. Gardner.
Well, Dr. Gardner is no longer the deputy commissioner.
Okay.
So therefore, yeah. So what really right now, I'm glad you brought that up, because Dr. Levy was very involved inside inclusive access as well. We could reach out to him as well. And I told the committee, we need to, which I agree with them, they need to find out exactly where we were last time, and I can find what we talked about in the last meetings that were in minutes, so that I can provide to them to catch everybody up to speed first. But yes, you're right. We did. Dr. Gardner had a real interest in this because he thought it would be a good program and in the best interest of students to maybe reduce those costs for textbooks. So yes, we sort of mentioned some of this during the meeting.
Very good. Thanks.
Excellent. That sounds great, and I look forward to hearing more about what the Inclusive Access group does, and then of course working through the survey again. This time having engaged with the commissioner and talking about the importance of that survey. Maybe we can encourage him or implore him to send an email on our behalf to encourage people to participate or something. But we'll just kind of wait on some updates from Dr. Lofters on where to go from that. So that brings us to item 10 in our agenda with our last 13 minutes. I have to say, starting today, I wasn't sure if we were going to go the full time, and it's been a great meeting, lots of great discussions. I've taken about 5 pages of notes here at home myself. So for the last 10 minutes or so, we wanted to discuss future agenda items and meeting dates. But first, Dr. Lofters, because we are meeting now in June, and I think technically our statutory requirement is to meet between 4 and 6 times, I think, a year. This is our 4th meeting for the year. If we think back to, this is our 2nd Skype. We had the meeting in November that was cut short, and then we had a meeting back in September, I believe. Patrick, do you remember? Was it September? Yeah. So that gives us our 4 that we're supposed to meet for the year. So I don't know if we need to meet another time this summer, or if it would be better to meet in August, September timeframe. Dr. Lofters, from the coordinating board standpoint, what are your thoughts there?
Due to the fact that this group is not going to change over this next year. No one's off, due to the fact that we were asking some of the members who were going to roll off during this year to extend their term for 1 more year. You have flexibility now. Some of those people that would have been gone now are here to able to continue the work. So the usual meeting at this time would be around August, September, so that we could have everything ready for the October. Is that right? It would be August, so yeah, late August, early September, so we have everything ready for the October board meeting. Right now, the board and the cause meetings are at the same time, so it's October. So you can meet in September, it'd be fine. Given that we're in the current COVID environment, and I don't even know what it will look like for y'all at the beginning of the year, getting ready for the semester. I don't know how that's going to look. So it's up to you all when you want to meet. Do you think you can do it in August? That's up to you. It would still be within a 4 to 6. We'd still be fine then. It would still be within this year for August. Or if you started in September, that'd be a meeting for the next year. So it's your pleasure.
So so part of me is thinking August is going to be a little difficult for most of us. I'm imagining. We are in the middle of lots of schedule changes right now and trying to staff classes and make sure our instructional designers don't run screaming from their homes because we've asked them to do so much and things like that. But I'm open up to the committee as a whole. Would meeting in early September be something you think we could make work? That way there's plenty of time before the October calls meeting. And you can nod or raise your hands or something. I'm looking at the screen.
I like that idea. I think 2nd week in September. So we're enough into the semester. Maybe we have some security. We'll make it through the other side, but still gives us plenty of time to get anything on an agenda for cause.
Okay. So Andrew, Christina, maybe we look at a doodle poll and for maybe that, late that first week, 2nd week of September. I will be cautiously optimistic that we can meet as a group, knowing realistically we may be meeting in Zoom again. I'll say Texas Tech is fine continuing to host our Zoom meetings if we have to meet again in Zoom. Christina, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just kind of want to get an idea. So Monday, September 7th is Labor Day. And I'm just kind of wondering how many people like to take off before or after, if it would be better to have it after Labor Day or that first week of Labor Day, of September.
Oh, no, the 4th.
Because you've got, yeah. I mean, so I'm just curious. I was just wondering how you guys felt about that.
So either the 4th, the Friday before Labor Day, or the 11th, which is the Friday after Labor Day.
I mean, it's really your call. I just wanted to make note that, you know, Labor Day is out there.
I mean, we can't go anywhere. Can't do anything. And the governor just shut down places that, you know, you can go tubing, so you can't even go float the river anymore. I don't care. Before the Friday before or the Friday after Labor Day is fine with me. But group, what are your thoughts? Would the 11th be better, just in case you're able to travel and things like that?
Friday afterwards is 9/11. And I don't know, I have an aversion to anything on 9/11 these days, but I'm fine either Friday though, in honesty.
I was thinking our classes really have just started that week right before Labor Day, so that still might be difficult. We may not know where we're at yet with some things.
Okay, why don't we, Christina, let's just do this. Let's do a doodle poll on the 4th, the 11th, and we'll go ahead and throw the 18th in there. It puts us later, which may be harder with cause, but let's just ask the committee what works best for them, and knowing that hopefully we will get as many people as possible, but we may not be able to get everybody. But as long as we have a quorum, we're okay. So let's do that. Those 3 dates, the 4th, 11th, 18th, and see what we can make work there.
Sounds good.
Perfect. And then as far as future agenda items, we will do everything we've done. We'll do the coordinating board updates. We would do the working group breakout sessions and reports. And so then that would leave time for if there's other doctoral programs or any other topics that the committee would like to discuss at our next meeting.
And I'm open if, you know, especially in this current environment, if you want to email me something that you're not really thinking about right now, I can run it by, or to Justin and Patrick, you know, email us the topics.
Why don't we do this? Not to put anybody on the spot, and so give us some time. We've got plenty of time, so why don't we shoot for anybody that's thinking about agenda items? Why don't you try to email them to either Patrick, myself, or Andrew, or all of us? Let's say by, I don't know, July 17th. That's like 3 weeks from now, and that way would help us as we start routing the agenda for open records rules and things like that. So maybe about 3 weeks, think about agenda items, and we'll see what's there, and go from that. I think one item we should leave on as kind of a continuation would be, you know, COVID responses in the fall from our campuses, because we know after today it may be very different, you know, than what we were thinking it's going to be.
Now, I'd like to also suggest we put an item related to the relationship we're building with the commissioner, and perhaps see if whatever date we decide on, he could join us for even just 15-30 minutes, and we can kind of see where we are with some of the initiatives that he has endorsed and said, yeah, I want to support that, and see where we are. I'd like to have his engagement continued in meaningful ways.
Okay. Perfect. Any other thoughts right now? Jessica, you had your hand now? Or were you just scratching your nose there? Okay. Fixing your glasses, I got you. All right. Hearing nothing, and I know this has been a very long meeting, and we are probably all Zoom meetinged out by this point in this summer. I don't know about you, but I think I spend about 5 or 6 hours a day on different Zoom meetings. And then at some point get to do my regular work. So I want to thank you all for your discussions today, and for the engagement that you had, the great questions, the great comments, everything we've talked about today and moving forward. I think it's now more than ever, LTAC, I think is making a very meaningful contribution to higher ed in Texas, because we are all in the middle of this pandemic. So I thank you for that, and I'm welcome to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn.
All right, Patrick moves to adjourn.
I second.
Rolando seconds. Because it's a move to adjourn, we don't really have to take a vote. So I appreciate all that you are doing. Please let me know if I can ever be of assistance to any of you. You have a great rest of your day and a happy and safe 4th. And we will talk again in September.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Justin, and
everyone. Thank
enjoy
you.
the short commute.
Thank you.